Colleagues, ready? We're recording.
I'm ready.
It's 9 a.m. I'll bring the Dubuque County Board of Supervisors into session for our meeting on Monday, August 9th, 2021 at 9 a.m. We are in the board chambers on the fourth floor of the courthouse and also virtually via Zoom. Welcome those who are in the boardroom and also those on our virtual world. The first item before us is public comments. We reserve time at the beginning of our meeting for anyone to address the board on matters which are on the agenda. You may go to the podium, state your name and home address, or online you may raise your hand in the reactions function on Zoom or enter a comment in the chat bar, and we would look for folks who wish to comment. We'll pause a moment to see if anyone wishes to do those activities.
Dawn, do you plan to use the video today? The video of our chambers here? No problem.
We do not have anyone at the podium. Do we have anyone online indicating they wish to speak? All right. The first item on our agenda then is the proclamation, and we do have one today. Supervisor Potoff has agreed to be gracious enough to read it into the record.
Proclamation for National Health Center Week 2021. Whereas for over 50 years, community health centers have provided high-quality, affordable, comprehensive primary and preventative health care in our nation's underserved communities, delivering value to and having a significant impact on America's healthcare system. Whereas the country's largest primary care network, community health centers are the healthcare home for 30 million Americans in over 14,000 communities across the nation. 1 in every 12 people in the United States gets their care in a community health center. Whereas community health centers are a critical element of the health system, serving both rural and urban communities and often providing the only accessible and dependable source of primary care in their communities. Nationwide, community health centers serve 1 in every 5 residents of rural areas. Whereas community health centers serve as beacons of essential resources and support in testing and treatment in the face of the global coronavirus pandemic, and will continue to offer reliable, affordable, high-quality care against COVID-19 for America's most vulnerable and underserved communities. Whereas everyday community health centers develop new approaches to integrating a wide range of services beyond primary care, including oral health, vision, behavioral health, and pharmacy services to meet the needs and challenges of their communities. Whereas community health centers are governed by patient majority boards, ensuring that patients of each health center are engaged in their own healthcare decisions. Whereas community health centers are locally owned and operated small businesses that serve as critical economic engines, helping power local economies by generating $63.4 billion in economic activity in some of the country's most economically deprived communities. Whereas community health centers nationally employ more than 253,000 people, including physicians, nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, and certified nurse midwives who work as part of a multidisciplinary clinic teams designed to treat the whole patient. Whereas the community health center model continues to prove an effective means of overcoming barriers to healthcare access, including geography, income, and insurance status, improving healthcare outcomes, and reducing healthcare system costs. Whereas community health centers reduce overall cost of care by helping manage patients' chronic conditions, which keeps them out of costlier healthcare settings like hospital emergency rooms. Whereas community health centers are on the front lines of emerging healthcare crisis, providing access to care for our nation's veterans, addressing the opioid epidemic, and responding to public health threats in the wake of the natural disasters. Whereas National Health Center Week offers the opportunities to celebrate America's over 1,400 health center organizations with over 12,000 service delivery sites, their dedicated staff, board members, patients, and all those responsible for their continued success and growth since the first health centers opened their doors more than 50 years ago. Whereas during National Health Center Week, we celebrate the legacy of America's community health centers and their vital role in shaping the past, present, and future of America's healthcare system. Now therefore, we, the Dubuque County Board of Supervisors, do hereby proclaim August 14th, 2021 as National Health Center Week. We encourage all Americans to take part in this week by visiting their local health center and celebrating the important partnership between America's community health centers and the communities they serve. Proclamation adopted this 9th day of August 2021.
Thank you, Supervisor Potoff. Do we have a motion to approve that?
I will make a motion to approve the proclamation.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the proclamation. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of, I'm imagining it's Crescent Community Health Center? Welcome. You may go to the podium. Give us your name and...
Yeah, I'm Eva Schmid, and I do the marketing for Crescent Community Health Center, and we thank you for approving this proclamation and recognizing Health Center Week. Crescent is this year celebrating its 15th anniversary, and we are hosting an open house, a ribbon cutting and open house this Thursday at 4:30 p.m., and we welcome the board and the community to join with us in celebrating.
Fantastic. Thank you. We appreciate it very much. Yes, and we'll have the proclamation for you here.
Would you like a picture? Photo op?
We have cameras.
You come on up here by the flags here.
We get a little bit better at this every day. I'm Ann McDonough.
Hi, it's Eva Schmid. Nice to meet
Jay
you.
Wickham.
Eva.
Nice to meet you, Eva.
Nice to meet you. You want me to hold this?
How's that? Is that good? Ed, you got us?
Oh, sure.
That one.
That's not a very personal question. Is this far enough?
That's sure.
Thank you.
I'll see you Thursday.
Thank you.
Okay,
And
great.
then I know you're also Brexit.
Yes, for the following week. Yeah.
I'll see you then.
Okay, thank you.
Continuing on our agenda, we have the minutes of August 2nd and our very long meeting of August 3rd.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
And I will second that.
Motion is second to approve the minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. We do not have any consent items. We do have one procurement. If we'd like to have Jeff Miller come forward from our GIS department, we're looking to open the bids for fiscal year 22 digital orthophotography. And Dawn, I think you were going to give us some context as to the proof of publication.
Yes, thank you. So since this is a service and not a public improvement project, we are not required by code or by our own administrative policy to publish this in the newspapers. This was not published. It was approved. Notice to bidders was approved by you, and then that got, the GIS department then sent out notifications to potential bidders. But just because there was not a notice in the paper, we are still compliant with code in our administrative policy.
And it was posted on our website.
Is the speaker's microphone on? Yeah. Okay, very good. All right, so do we actually need formal motion on the proof of publication then, Mary? Okay, not necessary. So we'll proceed with the opening of the bids. I believe Jeff has them. They were emailed, so you'll open them at this time and read them into the record?
Yep. The first one is from NV5 Geospatial. Hopefully I can find where their totals are. sure about a calculator. We had a lot of different things so that
That's fine.
they put everything in separate line items, so.
Just seems like the old days of slicing open the envelope where.
The total for that, for, NV5 geospatial is $124,177.95.
Jeff, who is that for? I'm sorry.
NV5 geospatial.
Mary, you'll have all these for us in the minutes next week.
Pardon?
Mary will have them in the minutes with the correct name and everything. I'm not familiar with these firms either.
The second one was from Aerial Services. Aerial Services bid, I believe, comes in at $87,555.
Can you repeat it?
$87,555. The next one comes from Surdex Incorporated. Their bid comes in at, $151,600. And the last bid is from Kuchera International. And their bid comes in at $107,900. And those are the four bids.
That's the four bids
That's
we
four
have?
bids that we
Very
have.
good, thank you. And Mary, do you have those all for the record?
I will make a motion to receive the bids and refer those to Jeff Miller, the GIS coordinator, for further review and recommendation back to the board.
I will second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Thank you, Jeff. And Dawn, I appreciate the background as well, and the leadership on that. Next, we go to our public hearings. Disregard zoning applications. And the first would be then a proof of publication. If anyone wishes to make a motion to approve.
I will make that motion to approve the notice of proof of publication.
I will second.
Motion is second to approve proof of publication. All in favor say aye.
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 That motion carries. Morning, Tammy. Over to our zoning administrator then for the first case, which I believe is ZC 05-10-21, Dennis and Carol Schmidt, A1 agricultural to R3 single-family residential.
Correct. The applicants are requesting rezone from A1 agricultural to R3 single-family residential, 2.5 acres, to allow the construction for 2 new homes for family members. The property is located 0.11 miles west of the city of Dubuque along Robin Hood Drive and Kennedy Road, and is legally described as Lot 1 of the southeast of the northeast, Section 10, T89 North, R2E, Dubuque Township, Dubuque County, Iowa. This property is owned by Dennis and Carol Schmidt. Zoning in the area includes A1 agricultural to the north, the south, and the east, R1 rural residential to the north, east, and west, R2 single-family residential to the north, the northeast, and the northwest, and R3 single-family residential to the south, the west, and the northwest. The R1 residential to the north on zoning case number 9010 of 79 was to allow 1 acre to be rezoned for a residential home, and the R1 rural residential to the north on zoning case number 0617 of 01 was to allow 1 acre to be rezoned for a future residential home. The R1 rural residential to the east on zoning case number 1231 of 17 was to allow 1.95 acres to be rezoned for a future residential home. And the R1 rural residential to the west on zoning case number 9008 of 73 was to allow 5.195 acres to allow for residential homes. The R2 single-family residential to the north on zoning case numbers 0611 of 89 was to allow 10 acres to be rezoned for a residential subdivision, and the R2 single-family residential to the north on zoning case number 13 of 6 was to rezone for 1 acre for a residential home, and the R2 single-family residential to the north on zoning case number 0818 of 20 was to allow 1.5 acres to be rezoned for a single-family home. The R2 single-family residential to the northeast on zoning case number 2802 was to allow 35 acres to be rezoned from A1 agricultural for residential homes. And the R2 single-family residential to the northwest on zoning case number 0717 of 2000 was to allow 20.56 acres from A1 agricultural to allow for a residential subdivision. The R3 single-family residential on the south, zoning case number 9015 of 74, was to rezone 25.30 acres for a residential subdivision. The R3 single-family residential to the west on zoning case number 0421 of 95 was to rezone 31 acres for residential subdivision. And the R3 single-family residential to the northwest on zoning case number 9014 of 73 was to rezone 10.275 acres to allow for residential subdivision. There are no previous rezoning cases attached to this property, and there are no special use permits attached to this property. 33 rezoning notification letters were sent to the property's owners, and the city of Dubuque was notified. Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 9, Agriculture and Natural Resources, page 134, Objective 3.1, and Chapter 8, Housing, page 122, Objective 12.7 may apply to this case. So, as you can see on the map, in the corner, and just down into the southeast corner, is where they're going to be developing 2 homes for family members. And there was an issue with Robin Hood Drive, and you've recently just adopted that, and Anthony has approved the entrance for these 2 homes.
Do we have any questions for Tammy at this time?
I will make a motion to open the public hearing.
I will second.
Motion is second to open the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. We are now in public hearing. If anyone wishes to address the board, provide comment or questions on this public hearing, you may do so now. If you wish to raise your hand and chat, we would look for you to call upon to be a participant.
Ann, this is Dave Schneider. Do you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, supervisors. Just kind of I guess, get a little background on this thing. We kind of started this back, I want to say March, April, in an effort to create these 2 lots, and went through going through the rezoning process. It kind of brought to head some of the issues related to that road. And so we've just kind of been working through those, as I think you may be aware. And I guess at this point, we feel like we're ready to move on, I guess, to get these 2 lots 3 and 4 in this development rezoned and hopefully the plat recorded today. And then as part of the process, we're also trying the lot 1, and this is an enlargement of a substandard lot on this property that did not meet the current septic requirement. I guess if anybody has any further questions, I'd be happy to answer them, and we'll kind of open it up to anybody else that may have comments.
Is there anyone else, Dawn, who wishes to participate? Do we have any questions for Dave?
I don't believe I have anything.
At this time, I entertain a motion to close public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
I will second that.
Motion is second to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. We're back to the board for any further discussion.
Tammy, what was the zoning board's discussion and approval on this case?
7-0, as long as the Robin Hood Drive situation was taken care of, and that has been taken care of.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning.
I will second.
Motion is second to approve the rezoning. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries.
I'll make a motion to suspend the requirement that this amendment be considered and voted on for passage at 2 prior meetings.
I will second.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries.
I'll make a motion that the amendment be adopted and the zoning administrator be directed to enter the appropriate changes on the official zoning map, and that the auditor be directed to arrange for the publication of the amendment and portion of the official zoning map as amended in the official county newspapers as required by law.
I will second.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Our next case is a public hearing concerning ZC 07-15-21 Larry and Sharon Spurl and Tammy Leclerc, A1 Agricultural to Ag 2 Agricultural Residential.
Okay. The applicants are requesting rezone from A1 Agriculture to A2 Agricultural Residential, 1.432 acres to be allowed to replace the existing farm home from that their daughter and son-in-law currently live in, and they would put a new home for platting and financing purposes. The property is located 0.88 miles southwest of the city of Sherrill along Circle Ridge Road and is legally described as Lot 1 of Circle Ridge Sub, Plat 2, Section 7, T90 North, R2E, Peru Township, Dubuque County, Iowa. The property is owned by Larry and Sharon Spurl. Zoning in the area includes A1 Agriculture to the north, the south, the east, and the west, A2 Agricultural Residential to the east, west, and the southwest, R1 Rural Residential to the southwest, and R2 Single Family Residential to the southwest. The A2 Agricultural Residential to the east was zoning case number 1132 of 15, which will allow an existing farm home to be separated from the farm ground for sale purposes. And the A2 Agricultural Residential to the west on zoning case number 0308 of 20 was to finance a new home on the farm. And the A2 Agricultural Residential to the southwest on zoning case number 0101 of 16 was to allow an existing farm home to be separated from the farm ground and to be sold to a family member. The R1 Rural Residential to the southwest on zoning case number 9011 of 76 was to allow for a single-family home, and the R1 Rural Residential to the southwest on zoning case number 9018 of 80 was to allow for a single-family home. The R1 Rural Residential to the southwest on zoning case number 0102 of 16 was to allow a non-conforming agricultural property and get it into compliance. And the R2 Single-Family Residential to the southwest on zoning case 0202 of 15 was to allow for a single-family home. There are no previous zoning cases attached to this property, and there are no special use permits attached to this property. 7 rezoning notification letters were sent to the property owners, and the city of Sherrill was notified. Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 9, Agriculture and Natural Resources, page 134, Objective 3.1, and Chapter 8, Housing, page 122, Objective 12.7 may apply to this case. This is, if you want to go up, Dawn, to the aerial on it, this is a simple situation where the home is in, it's in poor shape, and financing for them to go to the bank and get the money, they have to separate off this. So they're going to take the existing home down to build a new home in its place.
There are no questions for Tammy. Motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make the motion to open the public hearing.
And I will second that.
Motion is second to open public hearing. We are in public hearing. If anyone wishes to vote on going into public hearing,
We usually do.
let's have a vote on whether or not we should go into a public hearing, shall we?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. We're now in public hearing. If anyone wishes to speak, they may do so. Dave, are you also speaking on this?
Yes, I just turned my mic on here. Again, representing the Leclercs on this project and who live directly adjacent to their parents. There's 2 homes here existing. One, I believe, built it in the early 90s, which Tammy Leclerc's parents live in, and the older home built in the late 1800s that Tammy and her husband Wade live in, basically looking to divide it out so that they own their existing septic field, and the well for this area is also on this property, but basically trying to create that 1 acre plus lot so that they can basically spend some money on the existing, remove the existing house and basically reconstruct it in the same area going forward here. So we're not really adding any additional homes or changing the ownership of the people living in the homes. It's just mainly for financing purposes, I believe, and they do have the condition on the remainder to minimize any other density and dwellings out in that area. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have nothing.
I do not. Is there anyone else who wishes to make comment to the board? Seeing nothing, looking for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
And I will second that.
Motion is second to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We're back to the board. Do we have any questions or comments?
I have nothing. I'd make a motion to approve the rezoning.
And I will second that.
Motion is second to approve the rezoning. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
I'll make a motion to suspend the requirement that this amendment be considered and voted on for passage at 2 prior meetings.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
I will second that, yes.
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries.
I'll make a motion that the amendment be adopted and that the zoning administrator be directed to enter the appropriate changes on the official zoning map and that the auditor be directed to arrange for the publication of the amendment and portion of the official zoning map as amended in the official county newspapers as required by law.
And I will second that.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Thank you. Our final public hearing is for zoning case 07-16-21, Thomas and Molly Brim and John Hogan, A1 Agricultural to A2 Agricultural Residential.
Okay. The applicants are requesting rezone from A1 agriculture to A2 agricultural residential, 1.17 acres, to allow for the construction of a new home on the corner of the farm for their daughter and son-in-law to continue to assist with the livestock and farming operation. This property is located 0.51 miles west of the city of Epworth along Kidder Road and is legally described as northwest of the Southwest, Section 15, T88 North, R1W, Taylor Township, Dubuque County, Iowa. This property is owned by Thomas and Molly Brim. Zoning in the area includes A1 agriculture to the north, the south, the east, and the west, A2 agricultural to the north, M2 heavy industrial to the north. The A2 agriculture residential to the north was on zoning case number 1123 of 20, was to allow the separation of a new home for the remaining agricultural ground for financing purposes. And the M2 heavy industrial to the north on zoning case number 0724 of 16 was to allow any use allowed in the M1 industrial district. It included a construction office, a yard, and it has outdoor recycling, processing, crushing, sales, and storage of cement, aggregate, wood, etc., commercial storage buildings with outdoor storage and composting of yard waste and organic materials not included of meat or meat products after February 28th of 2017. There are no previous rezoning cases attached to this property. There are no special use permits attached to this property. 3 rezoning notification letters were sent to the property owners, and the city of Epworth was notified. Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 9, Agriculture and Natural Resources, page 134, Objective 3.1, and Chapter 8, Housing, page 122, Objective 12.7, may apply to this case. So this is about separation of a lot, again, for financing purposes, for the young couple to come out and live closer on the farm. They're already helping the farming operation, and now they're trying to get closer and live near the operation.
There are no questions for Tammy. Entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
I will second.
Motion is second to open the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, we are now in public hearing. Someone wish to speak on this case?
Again, Dave Schneider, Schneider Land Surveying, 906 First Street North, Farley, Iowa. Basically, I was contacted by John Hogan, and in basically what they're doing is his wife Bernadette grew up on this farm. John also has farming background over in the Earlville area. And what they're looking at doing is basically helping out John's father-in-law there. They're going to be actually moving his parents' home from the Earlville area off the farm because they're replacing the older home, and they're going to construct it on the corner of the Brim farm. And that's what we're I guess it's recycling at its finest here. But anyway, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. And
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter? You can do so virtually by raising your hand or entering a comment into the chat section.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I will second.
Motion is second to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. We're back to the board. Is there any discussion?
I don't have anything.
I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning.
I will second it.
Motion is second to approve the rezoning. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries.
I'll make a motion to suspend the requirement that this amendment be considered and voted on for passage at 2 prior meetings.
I will second.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries.
Make a motion that the amendment be adopted and the zoning administrator be directed to enter the appropriate changes on the official zoning map and that the auditor be directed to arrange for the publication of the amendment and portion of the official zoning map as amended in the official county newspapers as required by law.
And I will second.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. That completes our public hearings. Next, on to the approval of plats. We remain with our zoning administrator, who's also our plats officer. Very good. All right, Tammy, what do you have for us this morning?
Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is Country View Estates. It's a preliminary plat, so this will be a new subdivision. And it's been through the zoning with approval. And again, it's preliminary. This is not the final. Preliminary plat of Lot 1 through Lot 10 of Country View Estates comprised of the south half of the southwest quarter of the northeast quarter and the southeast quarter of the northeast quarter, except Lot 1, Lot 1 of Lot 1, and Lot 2 of Lot 1 in the northeast quarter of the southwest quarter, of Lot 1 and Lot 2 in the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter, and Lot 2 of Lot 1 in the northeast quarter and the southeast quarter, all in Section 7, T89 North, R2E, Dubuque Township, Dubuque County, Iowa. This property is owned by Ronald and Jesselyn Briner, and it is located 0.19 miles northwest of the city of Dubuque along Hales Mill Road with a total of 83.708 acres surveyed. The property is zoned R2 single-family residential and C1 conservancy. The purpose of the plat is to create a residential subdivision. The survey creates 10 lots. Lots 1 through 8 are a minimum of 1 acre in size, and each lot shall have its own individual septic system. Lot 7 has an existing home that will remain in the subdivision, and Lot 9 has a total of 24.105 acres, and it will remain in current agricultural use. Lot 10 has a total of 46.4693 acres surveyed, and it will remain in agricultural use until the crops are removed, and it will be the future site of an expansion of this subdivision. There will be 2 shared wells on the water, with the Dubuque Water Department would recommend service lines from the water main to building structures to be the copper with a control valve, curb, stop, and box near the right-of-way line. A copy of the water utility plan showing the water distribution piping from water wells and individual water services lines will be submitted by the review of the Dubuque Water Department. Lots 1 through 8 and lots 10 have an approved residential entrance on permit number 21-03 off of Hales Mill Road, and Lot 9 has an existing field entrance off of Hales Mill Road. This plat's been reviewed by myself as the plats officer and does not, is that last line, you do not have any signatures on this yet. So this is a new subdivision being created. There is plans for expansion in the future as well. So this is a preliminary plat, working with the city of Dubuque. I do know that Mr. Schneider has done this and has a lot of little detail he'd like to explain.
So we're working with the city of Dubuque?
Yes.
So where does this sit? I'm sorry,
It's off Hales Mill Road, and it's, 0.18 miles out of the city limits.
Just up from Derby Grange, right?
Yeah, so, yeah. So there was a farmstead that had been sold off, and it was all residentially zoned already, and so these are now being bought up and developed. Between city of Dubuque and Asbury are the closest to it.
And the zoning is R1 right now?
Yep, the zoning on this is, let me look at that before I say it, I believe it's R2.
R2?
It is R2, so it was correctly zoned, so there was no rezoning request for these properties.
and the plats are obviously working with our stormwater folks as well.
Yes.
Dave, did you want to give some background?
Yes, again, this is Dave Schneider, Schneider Land Surveying, 906 First Street North, Farley, Iowa. Yeah, kind of got involved in this as Ron Briner's been selling off portions of this property because of its proximity to Asbury and Dubuque. And it seems like there's a fairly strong desire to develop up on the north side of Dubuque based on the calls I've been getting up in these areas. But basically trying to work with the typical layout for a rural subdivision where we try to keep the driveways on the ridge because of to minimize the grading because of the desire in this area for walkout basements. And then with that, it basically forces any stormwater control to happen in the rear yards in an effort to kind of collect, slow down, filter the water coming off of the street and the improvements, the homes, driveways, that sort of thing. We have submitted the final plat on this and are working, and the construction drawings, stormwater calcs, and are working through the final details with Eric Schmeckel and the rest of the offices related to this project. But yeah, just it's pretty basic rural subdivision, approximately 1 acre size lots. There is one larger one because of the backyard is sort of unusable because of some fill that the previous farmer had put in that area that the desire it wouldn't be desirable to develop on the backyard of lot 6, which is going to be retained by the Briners at this point in time, along with lot 9. Greg Adams is with Remax is looking at improving and selling lots 1 through 5, lots 7, 8, and retaining lot 10 for a future expansion, lot 10 being the future expansion of this. And this has been through the city and reviewed. So on the preliminary plat side, we are submitted on the final plat side to get back on the city process as well. I guess if anybody has any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
How does this relate to the city of Dubuque? They just released their voluntary annexation plans. It's not just in yesterday's paper.
I guess I did
Do you
not.
know, do we have a bigger map about this, how close it is to city?
I have
It's the point. I'm sorry, go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say, I have not seen anything, and I'll let Tammy respond here.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything and have not been told about that, whether that falls into that. I guess I can talk to Wally Wernemont later today, but I'm not aware of that.
In previous developments, the city's required the property owners to sign and waive their rights for annexation. So they did that on the Horseville Road in JFK. I would anticipate they do that here as well. That's been their standard play to force all the property owners to waive that right, which I'm not a big fan of, to be honest with you. Dave, can you comment about the utilities? You mentioned a little bit about water taps, but just the existing development, is it sewer, water? Tell me what the plan is.
The proposed development is going to be basically shared water. We're on the final plat when that comes through and construction drawings. Basically, lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8 will be on one well. Lot 1, 2, 3, 7, and 8 will be on one well. Lot 4, 5, 6 will be on another well, with the potential to add 2 more homes on to that well when lot 10 is developed in the future, is the way it's being set up. Septic will be standard as far as the 1 acre lots and designed for a septic in the rear yard or the downhill side of the property. We are talking to Black Hills about expanding natural gas out into that area because of the desire not to have LP tanks by most of these residential developments, not having the tanks sitting in the yards. It either gets into a buried situation on an LP tank or natural gas. So the hopes is ultimately to have natural gas. Electric and a phone are basically going to be installed within the 20-foot public utility easement that wraps the street system within this subdivision.
Okay, thank you.
And then I would just like to add, you heard me say C1 Conservancy. As you look at that map, that corner little pink spot would be what the Conservancy is, and that is not going to be part of like any development, and that will not get developed. That'll just stay like tree line.
Okay.
Any other questions? Tammy, nothing is signed because it's preliminary.
This is preliminary. Some of these things could change and be fixed if there's an error that we find, and before the final plat would ever come through.
Definitely like the preliminary process. Have we done this before, preliminary process?
Always do.
With the board?
Mhm.
On subdivisions, what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay.
Just because these are big developments, and so they're required a different process in our ordinance.
Very good, thank you.
I would make a motion to approve the preliminary, plat.
And I will second that.
Motion is second to approve the preliminary plat of Country View Estates. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. The next is the final plat of Graff Station, Plat 2.
This property is owned by MBP Enterprises LLC and Donald Mers, and is partially located within the city limits of the city of Graff, with the remainder located in the unincorporated portion of Dubuque County with a total of 7.933 acres surveyed. This property is zoned A1 agricultural for the unincorporated portion located within Dubuque County. The purpose of this plat is to adjust a lot line which would allow the property owners to own the property that they currently maintain. The survey creates two lots. Lot 1 is a total of 5.659 acres surveyed that has 5 buildings and an office, and that is used as a wood processing facility that will remain in current ownership and use. Lot 2 is a total of 2.274 acres surveyed, and it will remain in current ownership and agricultural use. Lot 1 will use an existing access off of Graff Road, and Lot 2 will use a 30-foot wide access easement across Lot 1. There were no additions or corrections required for this plat, and there are no liens or mortgages on the property. Some of the signatures are over 60 days old, and they included the surveyor, April 27th of 2021, engineer, April 29th, 2021, Plat's officer, May 18th, 2021, county planning and zoning, May 18th, 2021, attorney's opinion, May 6th, 2021, county treasurer, May 11th, 2021, county assessor, April 29th, 2021, county health, May 27th, 2021. This plat's been reviewed by myself, and it has all the required signatures. I respectfully recommend approval. So this is just an adjustment of a lot line. And so the logging yard was using some of this area, and Donald Mers agreed to, sell them that piece of the property so that it's adjusted into their lot.
Kind of hoping it was going to be a subdivision in Graff.
That would probably be in a floodplain. Wouldn't work
You need
right.
a flood plan. I'm sorry to be flippant. Very good. Are there questions for Tammy?
I have nothing.
Nor do I. I'll make a motion to approve the plat as presented.
I will second that.
Motion is second to approve the plat for Graff Station Plat 2. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Next is we're looking at the final plat of Meyer's Place, Plat 2.
Okay. This property is owned by Horsfield Materials, Inc., and is located 0.12 miles north of the city of Dyersville along Christoph Road with a total of 151.28 acres surveyed. This property is zoned A1 agricultural and M2 heavy industrial. The purpose of this plat is to separate the quarry from the agricultural ground to allow the assessor to more accurately assess the taxes of the property based on the use of the land. The survey creates two lots. Lot 1 is a total of 93.66 acres surveyed with an active quarry, and it will remain in current ownership and use. Lot 2 is a total of 57.62 acres surveyed, and it will remain in current ownership and agricultural use. Lot 1 will use an existing 66-foot wide access easement off of Route 136, and Lot 2 will use a 33-foot ingress-egress easement off of Christoph Road, and there were no additions or corrections required for this plat. The mortgage holder's acknowledgement is signed and attached. Again, some of the signatures are over 60 days old, and they included the surveyor September 23rd of 2020, engineer October 6th, 2020, Plat's officer October 20th, 2020, county planning and zoning October 20th, 2020, owner's consent September 24th, 2020, bank consent September 24th, 2020, county assessor October 5th, 2020, county treasurer July 30th, 2020, and county health October 6th, 2020. This plat's been reviewed by myself as Plat's officer, has all the required signatures. I respectfully recommend approval. Again, this one is pretty self-explanatory. This is, the assessor advised them to separate this so that the taxes could be assessed properly.
Okay.
There are no questions. Looking for a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve the final plat.
And I will second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Last plat is the final plat of Markham Farm subdivision.
Yes. This property is owned by James and Linda Markham and Timothy and Kimberly Markham and is located 1.43 miles northwest of the city of Burkittsville along Flanagan Road with a total of 82.516 acres surveyed. The property is zoned A1 agricultural and A2 agricultural residential on zoning case number 1022 of 20. The purpose of this plat is to separate the existing home from the crop ground and sell additional farmland to Timothy and Kimberly Markham. The survey creates 3 lots. Lot 1 is a total of 43.315 acres surveyed, and it will remain in current ownership and agricultural use. Lot 2 is a total of 36.902 acres surveyed, and it will be sold to Timothy and Kimberly Markham and remain in agricultural use. And Lot 3 has a total of 2.299 acres surveyed with an existing home, and it will remain in current ownership and use. Lot 1 will use an existing field entrance off of Flanagan Road, and Lot 2 will use an existing residential access off of Flanagan Road, and Lot 3 will use a 30-foot wide access easement across Lot 2. There were no additions or corrections required for this plat, and the mortgage holder's acknowledgement is signed and attached. Some of the signatures are over 60 days old, and they included the surveyor September 29th of 2020, engineers October 6, 2020, plats officer October 20th, 2020, county planning and zoning October 20, 2020, city of Burkittsville October 6, 2020, owner's consent September 28, 2020, attorney's opinion December 20th, 2020, bank consent was October 15th of 2020 and December 3rd of 2020, county assessor October 5th, 2020, and county health October 6th of 2020. This plat's been reviewed by myself as plats officer, has all the required signatures. I respectfully recommend approval. Again, this one's pretty self-explanatory on what they're doing. They did do a rezoning to separate the home off. And this is, again, for family farming purposes. They're separating land with intent someday to actually increase the ownership.
Do we have any questions?
I have nothing. I'd make a motion to approve the final plat of Markham subdivision.
And I will second that.
Motion and a second to approve final plat. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you being here. Thank you, Tammy, very much.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciated.
Thank you,
Have a great
Dave.
day.
Thank you, Tammy.
Next on our agenda are action items. The board may approve, deny, or table any action item. The first is a resolution approving and authorizing the chairperson to sign the 2021 Justice Assistance Grant, JAG, Memorandum of Understanding with the City of Dubuque. I think it relates to distribution of funds. Does anyone wish to make that motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the resolution for the JAG grant.
And I will second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. The next matter before us is a resolution to approve the temporary delayed travel restrictions of county roads on September 18th for the 13th Annual Research for the Kids Poker Run Ride. Is there any discussion? This one also runs all the way around the country.
That one's Dirty Ernie's, right? Doug Ernson's.
Well, this is the Rice family, I think, Ride for the Kids. It's the motorcycle ride.
Well, that's.
They will be, one of the stops is Dirty Ernie's in Farland.
I was thinking it was a side-by-side ride that. I'll make a motion to approve the, temporary road closures for the ride.
And I will second that.
Motion and a second to approve the resolution. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. The final resolution concerns the lease with the City of Dubuque for Juvenile Court Services Department. We tabled this motion, or this resolution, last week for update. Dawn, do you have anything to report?
I can. I met with Jill Connors from the City of Dubuque on Thursday to discuss the additional options that I asked them for consideration. One was that we would have a year lease with a 0% increase, and the other was to have a 6-month lease option for us. So Right now, she said that the 0% increase is not on the table. That is something that they need to have that increase due to increases in building maintenance cost, annual maintenance cost of that. So they will not be presenting us with an option, a lease option at a 0%. She is going up her chain of command to have consideration for the 6-month lease or for a lease that will have a 90-day termination clause in it. They have had that. They have executed contracts with other organizations recently. Currently, what they have proposed to us does not have any termination clause in it. So she is working with her management staff to see if that's something that they would consider to offer the county. So this one that's currently in front of you does not have that option, and so I'm waiting to hear back to see if that would be an option that you would like.
So we would want to table this again, I'm taking it?
I would be in favor of that. The Nestler Center lease, was that at 0% the last 2 years? Does anyone know that off the top of their head?
It's been a couple years.
Couple years?
Yeah.
So the private sector has accepted our 0% recommendation, but the city is not, is what you're being told at this point?
It is not on the table.
Okay. But this board approved the 0% and actually requested that from the Nestler Center, which is even more whole dollars and larger space. So I would encourage the board to stay firm on the 0% or look at other options. If they want it out.
Again, the difficulty is that we are moving further into holdover status because we have not paid any rent to them. We could issue a payment under the new lease term or the old lease term of some kind, but we've done nothing. So that is my concern. And for a 6-month lease extension, I mean, it should have renewed July 1st. Now we're well past August 1, going into mid-August. They do not have to offer us a 0% increase. That's the negotiation. So if we wish to table this to give them an opportunity, that's fine. But, I mean, I think we should be moving on this and not letting it hang.
I hear you,
whether it's a year or 6 months, the 6-month time frame is passing too.
How does a 3% increase help reduce our costs? And I've been the laggard on this. My colleagues want to move forward on reducing our costs for our lease spaces. We're going in the wrong direction. Obviously, I appreciate the Nestler Center holding the line. All I'm asking the city of Dubuque is to hold the line at the current rates. I think it's a pretty fair request for one of our greatest partners. But yeah, I understand what you're saying is that we're unresolved, but it's, if you're trying to reduce your lease costs, which I've heard from the board numerous times, that's what our goal is, and we're out shopping around at other buildings, this doesn't help us do that. And so I would maybe ask for a little stiffer back from the board to talk to the city of Dubuque on what I think is a fair increase of 0. There's plenty of properties out there. And this property is not an A property. It's a great old federal building. It's got good bones, but we looked at it and we decided not to move anybody into the space, say, 4 or 5 years ago.
I would think that we could forward payment for July at the old rate if we do have to come up with an increase, which I would hope not, but at least we would have the rent paid. I agree with Jay, at 0%. We're both public entities. JCS is probably handling 80% of city cases. I think it's only fair that it should be 0 and at least for the 6 months until we can get something figured out. I'd keep looking at the 6-month lease.
What action would the board like to take today?
I would think we should make payment at the old rate for July, August. I mean, we'll be in negotiations here, hopefully, where we can get something figured out, but obviously we have to pay the rent too. And if there is an increase, well, we'll have to back pay that. But
I mean, I'm comfortable with making the payment if that's what the city would like. You know, I'm sure they're not out of money, so they're not gonna be waiting for our check, but if the board feels it's a consideration, I'm happy to do that, go along with that.
I've not had any conversation with the city about this, but it might be that, which is whatever, however you want to proceed, but if we make lease payments for July and August under the old rate, we're basically enacting a month-to-month lease term, I believe, under the current lease agreement.
Yes.
Right. So we just need to continue in communication with the city to get this resolved. They may well not wish to do that because they don't wish to enter into a month-to-month lease agreement with us. So, but we need more time. We do have to get some other questions answered. But just knowing that if we do that, Supervisor Potoff, they may reasonably refuse to accept the rent because they don't wish to have us be on a month-to-month lease under the terms.
Well,
So
it's
we'll
no
see.
big secret with the city or the county that we are looking for other space.
Correct.
So, I mean, they're aware that we are looking to reduce our leases.
And wouldn't you think they'd call us and say, hey, good luck with that, and we'll help you out, and you need any consideration on your current lease? You've been a wonderful partner, and you've leased the space for us for how many years? No, we get paid the 3%, okay? And that's what we get all the time. It just doesn't seem balanced to me, and this is another very small example of that. It's a simple ask, in my view. You think the city manager and the city council and the mayor would go, oh yeah, it's a simple ask, no problem. But no, pay the 3%, be quiet, do what we say.
What action would the board like to take?
I'd like to table it, remove it from the next few agendas
Is the motion to table for 1 week?
indefinitely, until it's resolved.
Is there a second to that motion?
I think we have to have an end on it, Jay, to bring it back up. Hopefully we can,
Whatever time frame you would desire, I will be
I would,
amenable to.
Do you wish to withdraw that motion?
I'm just discussing with Supervisor Potoff.
No, but we have a motion on the table. I just need to know whether, what you
It
wish
says
to
there,
do.
it's been indefinite until it's resolved, so, I mean, that's a.
Do you wish to second that motion?
I will second that. Hopefully we can get a result.
Yeah.
We have a motion and a second to table the lease agreement with the city of Dubuque for juvenile court services indefinitely. Is there any more discussion?
We can change that unless you know, but I was assuming you two were tired of my little speeches, so
No,
we don't need to have those until we get them resolved.
I think our motion is maybe it forms the basis for communication, I think, with Dawn. It is our official communication, and I'm uncomfortable with that, saying that it's just tabled indefinitely. That's where I am. I think we need to be a good partner with the city, and I don't think that just tabling it indefinitely is a good message to send. So I'm not going to be voting for that. I think we can find another way to table for 2 weeks or for some term, but just indefinitely feels more like a wave of the hand as if we're dismissing. So I won't be voting for that motion. Is there any further discussion?
Do you have a recommendation of a time that you'd be comfortable with?
I actually would be, my motion today would be to approve the lease as presented. But that motion is not before us. We have this motion to work through.
With the increase, you wanna?
Yes, we are holdover status. I don't think that that's the way we want to work with our partners. We missed some deadlines, we missed some communications, and I think that that's how this goes when you're negotiating out of the box. Whether you're a governmental entity or private enterprise, I think that that's very difficult to do, especially in government where communications are being passed forward by folks who are not, they're carrying messages. That's difficult.
I don't think we can act on that motion because we're looking at a 6-month lease.
But again, I was asked what motion would I be making. That's the motion I would be making. Right now,
I'm just saying, Dawn's working with them on a 6-month lease, so I don't think we wanna go into a 1-year lease.
we could craft a different thing. Maybe there's another motion that's just not been discussed yet today.
Well, certainly, in public, you saying you're okay with 3%, they know they just need one more vote to say yes to that and they're done. So that doesn't help our negotiating position. my other request in conjunction with this, if the board would like, I would be interested in how much we send the city of Dubuque. Maybe the budget director could provide that. You know, what dollar amounts do we send our partner each month, each year? It's pretty significant, I think, when you look at the various things that, various agreements we have. But that's kind of a little side note to this. So I have no more discussion on it.
How about if we would change the motion to table it for 2 weeks? That'd give Dawn a little time to work on the 6-month lease.
We have a motion and a second. I think we need to take action on that. Depending upon where that motion goes, then there can be other motions considered.
What would you like to do, Supervisor Potoff? You're thinking 2 weeks?
I think 2 weeks, that gives Dawn time to look into, they'll get back to her on the 6-month lease.
Okay. I'll rescind my motion, my first motion.
Do you rescind your second?
I rescind the second.
We're back
I'll make
to-
the motion to table, sorry.
No, we're back to the beginning. What would you like to do?
I'll make the motion to table for 2 weeks to give Dawn time to confer with the city on the 6-month lease option.
I will second that.
We have a motion, a second to table, this matter for 2 weeks and place it on the agenda in 2 weeks in the future. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Next, we move on to communications. The first is the Greater Dubuque Development Annual Report. We all received a copy of that, I believe. It's on our desk last week or the week before. We also have a letter from the city assessor regarding assessment appeals. Did you have a chance to get any of those questions answered if you had any?
I went through it, yeah.
Okay, very good. And then the last one is the manure management plan for rolling acres, number 68293. What action did the board wish to take?
I would make a motion to receive and file.
And I will second that.
We have a motion, a second to receive and file. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Next are the appointments. We have one appointment to the Disabilities Council. Caitlin Wolf, and her application was in the packet. Is there any discussion?
I have nothing.
Hearing none, looking for a motion to approve.
And so moved.
I will second.
Motion is second to approve the appointment of Caitlin Wolf, Asbury, Iowa, to the Disabilities Council. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. The next document is our open vacancies. And I do have a question. On the eminent domain compensation commission, it's my 6-month anniversary to ask you again about where we are with DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion at Dubuque County with regard to this. And that's a good discussion we can have. But I thought we had one person on that commission, and now we have no one. Did their term already expire?
For eminent domain or what, or the E?
I'm sorry, Equal Opportunity Committee, 4.
I would have to look. I don't think their term expired.
It's no longer listed as a person there.
Okay.
So it shows all of them as vacant, and I thought we had Mikhail Jackson.
We did. I'd have to
Correct.
look at the term. He has not forwarded any documentation or letter that.
Just waiting for us. So anyway, I misspoke. That's my comment. If you could maybe look into that for me. Is there any other discussion? Moving on, personnel requisitions. We do not have any before us this morning. Brings us to the public comments section of this agenda. If anyone wishes to address the board about issues which are of concern and they are not on this agenda, you may do so at this time. You could do so by going to the podium or raising your hand in the Zoom world under reactions, or entering a comment in the chat box, and we will recognize you. We do not have any citizens wishing to speak at this time. Therefore, we can move on to our work sessions unless we would like to take a brief recess.
Need a brief recess. I'll make a motion to recess till 10:15.
I will second that.
Motion is second to recess until 10:15. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. We'll be back at 10:15. Thank you. with Zyper's Orchard. Sheriff Kennedy,
Yep, I'm here.
very good.
Did we? Was that the order? Was he? Yeah, I thought. Oh, okay.
So, Dawn, this is on the agenda for a work session. What do we got?
This was a result from last week's discussion. It was not on the agenda last week, but you as the board had asked that we have additional discussion about the road or the parking on the road during their busy season. So, Sheriff, I'm not sure if there's a representative from the orchard on this call.
Yeah, I was looking.
Did anyone reach out to the orchard?
I did. I sent them an email last Monday, let him know we're going to be talking about it today at 10 o'clock. So I'm not sure. I did not get a response from them. So I don't know if if they decided not to participate, or maybe they don't check their email that often. I guess I don't really know. So, but I did reach out to them.
I think we thought we would put it on as an agenda item so that we're not speaking out of turn about them. We thought that they would want to be present for this conversation. So what does the board wish to do?
I would recommend moving it, so to speak, offline, where Sheriff Kennedy can talk about traffic control with the business owners. I mean, I don't think I can add a lot of value. I'm happy to listen. If somebody thinks I can help, I would be happy to do that. But obviously, Supervisor Potoff would have a lot of experience with traffic control as well. But I don't know if we need to make this a work session at the Board of Supervisors level at this moment.
I believe it's something that Joe can handle with Zypers to work something out that's equitable for everybody and safe for everyone.
Sheriff Kennedy, are you okay with that? We're assigning you,
Yeah,
telling you what to do.
I'm fine with it. We'll I'll get with Anthony and Zypers, and we'll see if we can't come up with some sort of a, some sort of a successful resolution to this issue, at least some sort of an improvement. But it's going to be a year-to-year thing, I guess. We're probably just going to have to gauge the results at the end of each fall and try to figure out a better plan for the following year. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I we've got a little dead time here before our next 10:20. So, during the fair, when I came around the corner on the old highway, I saw that electronic billboard. It caught my attention right away and was telling you to slow down and watch for pedestrians. So, that seemed to work out at the fair. A little slower miles per hour, but definitely got my attention.
Yeah, I mean, if we could get some message boards out there, for about a month, it would help. I think the biggest thing would be that, we wouldn't want them turned on all the time, probably just on the weekends during the high volume time, because, as we've seen a lot with our speed shields and things, people pay attention to them at first because they're new, and, it's just kind of an attention getter. But if you drive past those signs every day for a month, by about the end of week 2, you're done paying attention and back to status quo. So, it would probably be something that we would only ask me turned on, Saturdays and Sundays through the fall. So just my initial thought.
Sounds good.
Very good.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joe.
Next work session is, I'm assuming then with Stella Rundy to discuss the American Rescue Plan Act funding. You have 10 minutes, apparently.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Stella.
I'm going to share my screen quick. I'm just going to give a quick update about what's happened since last time we met.
At that last meeting where we discussed this, you approved the external application and the external survey. So I just wanted to show you the website and how that's functioning. All right, so we created a page within our Dubuque County website dedicated to the American Rescue Plan Act. So it can be found easily from the home page if you go to How Do I, and then Apply for American Rescue Plan Act funds. So that's an easy way to navigate to it if you're just on the DubuqueCountyIowa.gov website. It'll take you to this page. We start with just some information that we had gone through this and you had approved the verbiage and stuff like that. So we're just discussing what the American Rescue Plan Act is, and then we have information about the survey first. So the big link in here takes anyone that would like to take the survey and give us their thoughts on our Rescue Plan Act spending to here. And of course, then there's the survey that we had discussed a few weeks ago now. And then down below that, we have the information for community organizations and partners to submit a proposal for rescue plan funding. So when they click on the link, it takes them to a second page that lets them know that they'll need to create an account that allows them to save their work so they can go in and complete the application over time if they need to. And of course, everything is due by September 15th. So I've seen, I think, one proposal come in so far through this. Surveys are starting to come in as well.
How many surveys did you get so far? Just
I think we've gotten about 150 so far.
okay, well, good.
Thank the TH, gave us a little plug on the survey as well.
Yeah.
Nice to get that word out.
Yeah. So really, I just wanted to show you this. I don't have much else to update. We're just waiting for proposals to come in. Our first report to the Treasury will be due August 31st. So we'll be seeing information from the Treasury, hopefully in the next couple of weeks on how to do that exactly.
So most likely the report would be like, we're here, we've got your funds, we haven't spent any yet.
Yes. So even if we haven't allocated anything, we still have to
fill out it.
Yes. And then it will begin quarterly after that.
When will we know if we need to discuss having an analyst to help us get this work done?
I think I'll likely put a proposal together, but it will really, I think, depend on the number of projects that we decide to do. You know, if it was one or two projects, you know, 3, 4, 5 even, probably not a big deal. If it's going to be a large number of projects, it would be ideal to have additional hands on.
And when our department head, they're also submitting proposals, when are those due?
Those are due August 31st, I believe. We did not extend that timeline.
And will those internal applications be just handled through email and just getting you the files? There's no web portal for them?
No portal for them.
Then you'll set up a folder system internally to keep track of all the documents. Okay, thank you. While we have a minute, can you just quickly go through the application just
Sure.
for my vantage point on the web here to see how easy or hard it is? Do you have to create an account?
So you have to create an account. We set it up this way to allow people to save. If we hadn't done that, they wouldn't be able to come back in and out and save. So we thought that would be valuable. So I can go into my account, see if it'll pull me right in. And then, of course, it just starts with basic information about the organization, who they are, contact information. So we just took that Word document and really plugged it into here. And then after the section on, you know, who they are and their contact information, it's really about the project. What is the project? What's the program they're proposing? how does it fall under Rescue Plan Act requirements, and then descriptive information about the project.
Stella, where is the ecclesiastical issue raised?
That is in the question number 13.
And have you asked County Attorney May to weigh in on that?
I have not yet.
Okay. Can you please do that? Because I know that we have several significant organizations in our community, Catholic Charities, who do work under this, and that's a big problem. So we need to have him determine what does that mean to be under supervision, management, and control, so as to prohibit them from qualifying for this. So I think we do need to have somebody dig into that some. Otherwise, some of our potentially largest partners are prohibited from receiving rescue funds because of this map, this right here. So it seems a little broad. I wasn't familiar with it until you and I started discussing it. The language in the code's pretty broad. So I'd like to get CJ's, kind of an awareness of what this means, how is it determined. Obviously, you need to know inside the IRS how, this is an IRS code requirement?
No, this is Iowa code requirement.
I understand that's the code, but how did it come to be into our grant? You're just blending in the Iowa law along with what the federal?
Yes, it's Iowa law that we can't give public funds to organizations under ecclesiastical or sectarian management or control. That's the verbiage in the Iowa code.
I think it'd be wise to have the county attorney review not just item 13, but maybe the entire application. If there are other items that we think will trip us up in the future. And then how many questions are there overall? So I see 15.
So then there's information about the project, and then the financial information is the last section. So attaching the budget and asking several questions just about the finances of the project, and attaching their financial statements in whole.
So 43?
43 total.
With the ability for them to upload files as well.
Yes.
Good. And did we do this formatting all internally, our IT department, or?
Our IT department did this, yes.
Wonderful.
So this is on our Civic Plus platform, which is also the agenda software.
So Stella, a question. The Dubuque County Historical Preservation Commission has received $1,000 from us, I believe, for the past many years. Is it our expectation that they would complete a 43-item application? Is that what you believe?
So I did send out communication as directed by the board last week to all of the purchase of service applicants to direct them to complete this form.
So yes, the answer is yes. To get that annual allotment that is the sum total of their operating budget, it will now be delayed into the future, and they need to complete a 43-item application.
And that's one of our boards, though, isn't it? Is that one of the boards and commissions? So I think there's a little differentiation with that one, because it's tied to our boards and commissions. We don't make other boards and commissions go through that, so I would think you wouldn't, but.
We also have the Food Policy Council. They have already made awards to enterprises that were beginning to take action on July 1st. Did they also receive one of these letters saying you need to go back through the 43-point application?
They did receive this communication.
Yes, they did, Stella?
Yes, they did receive this communication, although our internal boards and commissions, I think, should be reviewed separately, obviously. The Food Policy Council runs through the Board of Health, so that's the mechanism for their budgeting, and I think they should be part of the Board of Health budgeting moving forward.
And so when are we going to do that? When are we going to do those things, where we decide who's got to complete the 43-point application, and who from that list that you shared, who should be before us in getting their decisions made and moving?
We directed everybody on that list to complete this application.
Right, and I'm unsatisfied with that. There are some people, I think we've just identified two, who shouldn't be maybe on that list, who should move forward in a more rapid manner.
I think she recommended that. Is that what
When
you
will
just
that
said?
come forward to us?
We don't have anything scheduled at this point. We can talk with the Food Policy Council to see when they can be on the agenda. We would not recommend doing a pass-through grant making, going forward. It would be a budgetary item of the Board of Health, and then contracts executed by the Board of Health or Board of Supervisors to achieve services.
If you communicated that to the Board of Health?
I have not had a specific discussion with the Board of Health about it.
But I follow what you're saying, that the food policy is under the Board of Health, so the Board of Health's budget comes through us and then goes to the Food Policy Council. So we need to talk to the Board of Health about the food policy.
The Board of Health approved the Food Policy Council pass-throughs. Those recipients were approved by the Food Policy Council, I think, in April.
Probably.
But the problem being is some of those grants are illegal.
Well, they're certainly concerning, so, but that's
Well,
my
that's-
question. We've never communicated back.
I don't know if Kevin has talked to them or.
We've had communication with them of, we're working through this process, we're going to be making changes. Please hold, we don't know exactly what those look like yet. So that's why they haven't done anything at this point. Those historically have they've gone to the Board of Health and then the Board of Supervisors for final approval. So that's why they have not been in front of you yet as we work through this process. The Historic Preservation Commission is not tied to any single department, so it's always kind of stayed in this list of people to make sure that the funding is looked at some point through the budget process. So we should either look at tying them to some kind of department to make sure they're part of that budgetary process, or think about how we want that to come forward to us in the future.
I'd like to have an agenda item with 2 weeks at your schedule, or do you need 3 weeks out, Stella?
Probably 3
You
weeks.
can call it loose ends, grants, boards, anything miscellaneous under this funding that we might want to move forward. I mean, 3 weeks will take us well into September, and those folks will have already, I guess, we move 3 weeks out, we'll be right after Labor Day. So it will be before the deadline for them to complete our 43 question application. But I am obviously so concerned that we are not looking at the exceptions to the rule, and there needs to be some.
Yeah, I'd be interested in resolving it. I don't see it as a high priority. I certainly see this as a high priority, but if you can do both of those in the near future, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I'd be happy to resolve those. But I like the direction, having those boards, commissions be separate, not follow this, internal departments, not having to go through this process. I think I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah. You got direction on what you need?
I do.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions or would like to see anything else with regard to the rescue plan?
And just remind us when these are due again?
These are due September 15th.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
Stella.
Yep.
Thank you. Is Brian Preston present?
I do not see him, but I see 2 members of our Conservation Board, and off stage left.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
How you doing? Well, thanks for giving us some time today. I have Cindy Gatto here. She's our board chair. And George Davis, also on the Conservation Board. So I want to talk to you about the conservation referendum. Okay, Green Coast. Thank you. We also have Pat Hayes and Paul Kaufman with the Dubuque County Conservation Society. So how do I forward? All right, perfect. Back in 2018, the Conservation Board undertook a countywide comprehensive parks, trails, and open spaces plan. It took over 2 years to plan. We had 13 members on the steering committee, and we have hosted over 11 public meetings and did 30-plus individual interviews with people that had particular interest in the outdoors and outdoor recreation. We had over 5,300 social media contacts and received 302 written comments, and at least 5 articles in the Telegraph-Herald. Back in November of 2020, the Conservation Board unanimously approved and adopted the Comprehensive Parks, Trails, and Open Spaces Plan for the Conservation Department. Some of the top 10 projects identified for the Conservation Board to undertake over the next 5 to 10 years were a stream restoration project at Swiss Valley Park. That is in progress right now. Parking lot enhancements at Interstate Power Preserve, which is in progress right now. 10 platforms at Swiss Valley Park and Preserve. 10 platforms at Heritage Trail at Twin Springs, which is underway, and we have 3 of those completed to date, and a latrine established out in that area. Paving of the Heritage Trail, cabins at New Wine Park, entry drive and river access improvements at Finley's Landing, disc golf and wetland restoration at Proving Grounds, creation of the Southwest Arterial Trail, and the development of the Little Macokota Greenway. So we have made some progress on some of those items, but you can see there's a lot of work that remains to be undertaken. So in June, we were approached by the Dubuque County Land and Water Legacy Political Action Committee that was put together to come up with ideas of how to help to fund the development and habitat projects throughout the county. And in July, the Conservation Board passed a resolution to petition the Board of Supervisors for a referendum on the November 2nd, 2021 election ballot for the purposes of providing funds for water and land conservation and park and outdoor recreation purposes.
Where does November 2nd come up in this?
At the very top.
Thank you.
I have it right.
So the petition is to ask the Board of Supervisors for a $40 million referendum, and that was approved at the July 15th, 2021 Conservation Board meeting. And the recommended wording states that the County of Dubuque, State of Iowa, issue its general obligation bonds in an amount not exceeding $40 million for the purposes of providing funds to improve and develop Dubuque County parks, to provide funds to improve existing recreational trails and develop new recreational trails, to provide funds to protect sources of drinking water and the water quality of rivers and streams, to provide funds to protect lands and to provide natural floodwater storage to reduce flooding, and to provide funds to protect wildlife habitat and natural areas to be managed by the Dubuque County Conservation Board with full public disclosure of all expenditures. So they also have a proposed allocation. 35% of those funds would be used for park improvements and expansion, which amounts to about $14 million. Water quality, land protection, and habitat management at 35% at $14 million. Trail improvements, development, and expansion at 20% at $8 million. And some other uses such as ag-related water quality initiatives, ATV trails, kayak launches, funding to cities for urban trails at 10% or $4 million over the 20 years.
And Brian, can you comment while you're on those dollar amounts? Those would certainly be if only $40 million was raised. Can you elaborate on the concept of typically trying to leverage those with other?
Yep. So if you look
grants?
Look at our outdoor, our long-range plan, our strategic vision. So we identified almost $46 million of potential capital improvements that need to be done. $36 million of that was identified as would be the county's responsibility. We feel that we could leverage these funds 4-to-1, which would amount to $120 million worth of projects in Dubuque County. Some of those other sources of funding would be private donations, federal grants, state grants, other ways. So when you have this capital money allocated for projects, it becomes much easier to go out and apply for grants and solicit donations for projects, knowing that you already have a start to the funding for the project. So I would say conservatively, we could leverage 4 times the amount at $120 million, or 3 times.
What is that based on? Your general knowledge or some consultant, or what is that based on?
My general knowledge and how this has proceeded in other counties. So Johnson County, Lynn County, Polk County are 3 to name a few that have done a conservation bond referendum and have been successful, and they have been able to leverage, 4 to 5 times that amount of total projects. So a $40 million investment would be leveraged many times. And these are a few of the examples from our long-range plan of how some of these funds would be utilized. And you can see that a lot of these projects cover multiple of those areas identified in the percentages. The Little Macokota Greenway, which was actually identified in the 1960s as a potential project to reduce flooding and improve water quality along the Little Macokota, and included in our 2020 long-range plan, would improve, fit under water quality, land protection, habitat management, and trail expansion. The project would acquire floodplain land from Durango to John Deere Marsh with the construction of wetlands. They would prevent flooding, would help manage storm water runoff, and would provide for better connection and trails. So some of those areas could be utilized for soft surface trails, grass trails for groups to run on. Cross-country teams utilize the Heritage Trail quite a bit for running. This would provide them additional space, soft trails to run and recreate on.
Can we talk about the Heritage Trail for just a minute?
What's that?
Let's talk about the Heritage Trail. One of the top 10 projects is to pave the Heritage Trail. And now I hear you saying that, is this a voter referendum on paving the Heritage Trail?
I don't believe so. We could utilize other funds other than these for if that project moves forward. We have applied for a few grants for the first section of Heritage Trail between Durango and Heritage Pond, and I think that would be if completed, that would be a good test to see what the public's reaction to this, how they like it, how it holds up, and I think this is not necessarily a referendum on paving the trail. So
shown here is one of your top projects for the next 5 to 10 years, and that is something that people do comment. And then they also call back and say they change their mind from one to the other to the next to the back. That's about a fluid question in Dubuque County, whether or not Heritage Trail should be paved, but I see it here as a top project. And then I see it here as connecting Heritage Trail to Proving Grounds. Is that paved? Is it not paved? I guess I would like to have an answer to that. So the question is, it will unfold. Whether or not that will happen is yet to be determined.
Well, we have shown indications that we're very interested, the Conservation Board, so we did approve unanimously to go after grant funding for that. So that is a leading indicator, but it's not done. And certainly I would agree with Director Breston that it's not tied to this voter issue because it's moving forward independent of that.
Okay. And
so
I guess I just need to know, so when citizens call me and inform me about their opinion about whether or not to pave the Heritage Trail, should I be directing that to the Conservation Board?
yes, yep.
Okay.
And I think it would be a decision for the Conservation Board to make whether any of these funds would be used to hard surface the trail, and
In the past, what I've told citizens is, well, we budget, so it's going to come in over time. You're going to have opportunity to comment. There'll be discussion raised. You'll know. It won't just happen. You'll know. But I guess that's when I saw that here and highlighted it, and I thought, well, maybe my conversation with people hasn't been accurate. Maybe, well, how will they know? If they don't attend your meetings in person, how will they know when the Heritage Trail comes up to be paved?
Yep, all of our meetings are in person and, online now, so,
Zoom link doesn't always publish, Brian, because I've tried to do that, and it's not always there, so. But we should be sure that that's the case, and that's what you intend to have it be, right?
it's our intent, yes, to have every one of our meetings, available in public and
Yeah,
by
and-
Zoom.
And clearly, that's a heavier lift because it's multi-millions of dollars, so I don't think it's gonna happen overnight. We're usually not that lucky and fortunate to be able to have those levels of funding to complete that project, but it is on the list, and the list is long too, so it's 100 and, the strategic plan's a couple hundred pages.
But
And so there's a lot of items on the list, but that is an elevated discussion, and it's a tough one. Some people like it as is, some people, want to have changes to it, but right now there's no funding available for that, and there's no funding budgeted for that. So until that changes, it's still just a hypothetical. Fair enough?
Yes, like many of these projects in our long-range plan. At this point, they're just hypothetical without any funding behind them.
But the key point of the whole, obviously, if we would go forward with this ballot issue and the public would approve it, this would be the mechanism to provide that long-term funding. Otherwise, or the base for that long-term funding. Otherwise, the strategic plan is very interesting and compelling, but as you pointed out in the past, Supervisor McDonough, how do you fund all this? And this would be one answer.
Right. But what citizens want to know is, what are you going to spend the money on? And I think this is a vast improvement. George Davis, I value that you broke it out in this resolution. Thank you for putting it this way. But when you come and you say, these are our top 10 projects, is that what the money's going to be spent on? Because some are in progress, and then, that's all. I think that has to be articulated as the clear answer. I'm happy you're here today. I didn't know the answer to that question. What are you spending the funds on?
And maybe you can elaborate on the process, because I don't think anyone can say it's going to be spent on this. Maybe you could talk about what the process would be to approve those, assuming the funds are available, just like we do in the other projects.
Yes, all of our projects, of course, have to have a public hearing, if they're over the $100,000 threshold. So we will be having public comment on all the projects. So, just because they appear on our long-range plan doesn't mean that they necessarily have to go forward, or the public doesn't have an opportunity to comment on those. So every one of our projects, we solicit public comment for, and the public has an opportunity to comment at our Conservation Board meetings.
And then who would make those decisions?
Then the Conservation Board would decide to move forward or not to move forward with those projects.
Thank you.
Next slide. Another popular project was the Swiss Valley Nature Center remodel. We have a very, very limited space, and just this summer alone, we've had 3 minor accidents in our parking lot causing property damage. But this falls under the park improvements and expansion. We get thousands of visitors each year, and it's listed as one of the Dubuque's top attractions. The proposed improvements include enhancing the driveway into the Swiss Valley Nature Center and the accessibility for buses and safer for students, making it safer for students. Expanding the parking and to add restrooms on the first floor and to move the first floor offices to the second floor to make the building much more accessible to the public. As it sits right now, it's pretty tough. It was served its purpose well for the last 20 years. Before that, I don't know if you remember the old dairy barn that we used to operate out of that was been renovated and added onto, but I never in my time working there thought we would outgrow our new nature center. When we built the nature center back in 2002, I thought, boy, we're set for a long time. 20 years later, we have outgrown our nature center, which is a very positive step. Next slide. It would also, an outdoor atrium currently where the vehicle traffic goes through our front door. People have to walk through the flow of traffic to get into the front entrance of the Nature Center. This would move the entrance to the west side of the building and add for a large meeting room overlooking the Catfish Creek Valley. Swiss Valley Park Trail expansion. This falls under several categories again: the water quality, land protection, habitat management, and trail expansion. Swiss Valley is the gateway park to Dubuque County system. We would hope to acquire some property in between the park and the nature preserve and develop an ADA compliant pathway, 10-foot hard surface trail up to the nature center from the park. Currently, we do not have any accessible trails at the Swiss Valley Nature Preserve, which is a really large hindrance to having school groups and having those school groups, accessible, 100% accessible to all those folks that are coming out and visiting us. So we would like to improve on that. This would include removing some invasive species, creating some new fish habitat structure along the stream, and boardwalks where needed. The final example today is the Whitewater Canyon improvements. This falls under several of the categories again. Whitewater Canyon is listed as one of the 10 hidden jewels in Iowa. It has some of the best views in the region, and it lacks basic amenities like restrooms, water, and park shelters. We would like to construct a kayak launch along Whitewater Creek, increase interpretive exhibits, and restore some of the canyon area. And we do have a selfie station, which was really popular on the Travel Iowa website there. So that's the last example from our long-range plan, but those are some of the types of projects that this bond referendum would help us undertake. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I'd like to know something about a feasibility study.
So
There is such a thing. Other counties have done it. What is it? How does it work? And did we do it?
So we did not do a feasibility study. The Conservation Board felt that there was strong public support to the strategic plan, and the success in other county referendums across the state, and with the increasing demand for expanded and improved recreation areas, we did not do a conservation feasibility study for the bond referendum.
What is a feasibility study?
Feasibility study basically looks at all the other avenues for funding projects in the long-range plan and analyzes those, takes a look at the population base, and kind of an overview of the direction, the size of the population of the county, some of the tax base, things like that.
Do feasibility studies cost money?
They do. Yeah.
Okay, and did they get budgeted to do a feasibility study?
Yeah, we did budget for a feasibility study in FY21, I believe.
And so we're not doing that because the Conservation Board thinks we should just move now?
Yeah, they voted unanimously to move forward with petitioning the Board of Supervisors for the referendum.
And so how did you come up with the number of $40 million?
So there's $36 million in obligations under the long-range plan for the Conservation Board and $4 million for other projects such as water quality initiatives, brings us to the $40 million.
Do feasibility studies usually help you get to the number of tax dollars you wish to raise? Do they help you determine that, or is that not what it does?
I think that's more determined by the long-range planning process.
Many of the other feasibility studies that I was presented to previous were related to the ballot initiative. So really is how feasible is this to pass? And so the feasibility studies are trying to gain democracy and trying to understand what the proof points might be for public acceptance. And so while I'm open to that, I'm not thrilled spending money on it. And I think that the truest form of, democracy and understanding what the people's will is to put it on the ballot. But you got to pick some provisions of what's going to be on the ballot, and we used some best case scenarios that, we've seen in other counties, and that generally speaking, the public's been aware of and familiar with. So we didn't try to recreate the wheel here. We looked at models from Johnson, Lynn, and Polk that all generally have been successful with the populace, and then generally successful in their implementation.
And I just want to be sure that there's the idea of a feasibility study was raised, and that there was discussion about it and why we chose not to do it. I think that's what citizens are going to want to know, and that's the answer I need to be able to give them when they ask me about it. How is this money budgeted over a course of years? I mean, how is the money collected? Obviously, we collect it, but is 1 year all $40 million raised? Is it over a period of time? How does it work?
I can comment on what other counties have done, and certainly if the director wants to jump in. And so this board gets to determine how that works, okay? So what other counties have done, and I would think we would follow, is that you wouldn't just drop 40 million on one day. You would, let's use easy math, that you'd use $8 million 5 times, that's 40 million. So you would bond for that, and our budget director can talk about where that would come from. And so you might have 5 scenarios that you would create debt or bonds for to fund projects that the Conservation Board and the public wants. And so you wouldn't have, a shock to your levy representing 40 million. You might have 5 increments of 8 million, hypothetically. And that would lower the levy asked at any one given time. But cumulatively, over a 15 or 25 or whatever year period, you would eventually bond at that 40 million would be the intent. But that's the decision of the Board of Supervisors to do that, is to create those bonds. And so whoever's sitting in these seats gets to make that decision, whether it's 40 million, 8 million, or 0.
Yeah, I'm not real familiar with it. I'm not gonna. So basically, we're putting a levy on to cover this for 20 years.
It would be, so the ballot initiative would allow us to do that by law, and then it would be our discretion, the Board of Supervisors, to actually enact that. And so if we did, so one, if it was placed in the ballot, 2, if it was approved by the public, 3, then the supervisors would then, just like we issued debt for the 911 system, we issued debt for the West Campus, we'd be issuing debt for a set number of projects. That's what other counties have done, so I anticipate we would follow that.
So it wouldn't be a separate, different, you have your roads fund, you have your general basic, there would be a separate fund for that levy, correct?
It would be under debt service, and it would be restricted for those funds, just like West Campus, but the budget director or auditor might be able to comment further, but.
Debt service.
Yeah, under debt service, and we're required by law, just like the West Campus, just like the 911 center, to say, here's what we're using this debt for. And we've used debt service in the past for even buying automobiles. We haven't done that recently, but we're required, when we go out and issue those debt and we have public hearings, we're required to say, here's what those funds are going to be used for. So I would fully anticipate this would follow the same process.
In the actual resolution, it says that the bond cost to the average homeowner of a $150,000 home is going to be less than $3 per month. Is that for 20 years?
It'd be as long as the bonds are issued, and keep in mind that's a generalization, so keep in mind there's variables in financing, so you have the whole dollar amount you're financing, the term you're financing, and the interest rate, all are factors in those. All are good factors right now, so interest rates are historically low. City of Dubuque just bonded at 1.9%, less than 2%, so the cost of funds are all-time historic lows, so that's another good thing if that continues for the next series of years.
That's a long answer to the question.
Pardon?
People want to know what it's going to cost. That's, you go out and you say you're going to raise their taxes for what,
Well,
for why, and how much? And I don't think that, we have to get those answers, right? Don't we need to know that?
Could you introduce yourself for the record, George?
Davis, 120 South Grandview in Dubuque. I'm on the Conservation Board. I called the Dubuque County auditor and asked him what the projected cost of this would be, and that is what he told me. On a $150,000 house would be roughly $36 a year, $3 a month.
$3 for 20 years.
For 20 years. And granted, you know, Jay mentioned the variables. And I assume that he took that and said, okay, at current bonding rates, at current assessed values, if we did the whole 40 million at once, that's what it would be over the 20 years. But I called them, I asked them if you're looking for further information, I think the auditor will have to, it's probably a more complex answer depending on when things are bonded. If things were bonded in year 18 and they go for the next 10 years, that pushes some of the costs out and makes some of the costs in this 20 years less. So I think I called, I was curious, I asked, that's what they told me, and that's what it,
Thank you. I appreciate all the work you've done, but another way to do this could have been to say that the annual cost to a homeowner wouldn't exceed X, right? And then, so we could be giving them a hard term to know.
And that, I think we need more money, more information than what the auditor provided me, but that's, I asked the general question.
I think there's two points. One, it's not a guaranteed tax increase, okay? So there's, as you know, our budget's roughly 70+ million. So there's a lot of other components. So this doesn't have to be a tax increase. And if you follow the lead that this board and previous boards that I've been on, we've been lowering that tax levy, okay? That's the only component we have to moderate taxes is that levy. That's our only tool in that formula. Assessments, blah, 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 a whole bunch of other things go into that. So it doesn't have to be a tax increase. And I would propose that it's not going to be a tax increase as long as I'm in this seat. And so that's the first big thing to understand. The second big thing to understand is this is no different than our budgets 3 years from now. What's the budget ask and what's the levy going to be 3 years from now? It's unknown. Now we can project out normal business, but you're just in government accounting, we are year to year, and I think you give your best fair and honest projections, but the budget is an annual process, and there are variables that we have no control over. Valuation, productivity in ag, so on and so forth, and obviously our expenses are one thing we can control. And so, you know, I think this process has been vetted by, if you go population, probably almost a majority of the population of the state of Iowa. And it seemed to have worked, and I'm very confident it would work here as far as if the voters approve it, the process will be fair and acceptable.
I guess my questions are whether or not we have the information that we need to be on the ballot on November 2nd. That is a concern that I have, because I don't think we are able to answer with clarity what the cost is to a citizen. And not just a person with a $150,000 home, but someone with ag land. This tax is levied against them as well.
Yeah. And I think we have a couple weeks to answer that.
Commercial property.
If not a month.
And I also did request that the auditor.
I expect that this is going to be another 30 days before we're going to have answers to some of those questions.
No, I mean, I think I have answers today, but, you know, I think we need some additional time. This has been a wonderful half hour. I would propose next week we have another half hour. I think it's that important, and I would want to be able to have the public's questions answered.
Well, we're going to Farm Bureau Wednesday night.
That's good. That's one.
And I did, just so you know, I did request from the county auditor an analysis of what it would cost the taxpayers. So that is coming, and I will share that with you as soon as I get it.
Do you have any questions?
I've gone over it several times. I was, 40 million seems like a big ask. I understand where you come from. I also understand that you need that to get a lot of these grants to have the matching funds, and you will probably triple it or quadruple the 40 million. I've had a lot of questions asked from the public. I will say there seems to be support. As far as I'm concerned, it is up to the public. They're the ones paying it. So,
And there also is, it's your discretion too, to how much to ask for too. I mean, it could be 20, could be 30, it could be $40 million, depending on what the Board of Supervisors decide. The Conservation Board has requested 40, but it is Board of Supervisors choosing on what that number is.
Are you suggesting that you can ask for $40 million and we might only levy for 20?
Yeah, I believe that's in our power. That's the way I read it. It's no different than the constitutional amendment for water quality, which has never been implemented
Even
at the state. So I wouldn't propose that. So my intent is that if this is approved by the voters, we will move forward with the plan that we presented. But the Board of Supervisors makes that decision.
And the last question I would have for your board to discuss, which is, if not November 2nd, when? Because we are less than 90 days, and I think there's basic questions that aren't answered, and that's a concern that I have. So I don't know what the time frame is to decide to put this on the ballot or not. I don't know what that is. We don't have our auditors here.
I mean, that's a good one for next week. Next week, the auditor, I think, would...
November 21.
November 21 or November 22?
21 is what there is.
So in less than 90 days.
And so that's where the auditor, I think there is a date that they need. And next week, maybe we could have the elections deputy and the auditor with us to flush that out as well.
And also, I'm concerned about whether or not your board wants to move forward at the speed, just based on other comments I've heard from Conservation Board members. So, you know, that's a concern that I also have.
The resolution was passed 5-0 unanimously, so
Correct.
I will take their voting record at face value. Jenny, your name was mentioned, but we hate to, it's up to the chair on whether she wants to allocate more time.
I think we're gonna...
Do you have more presentation, Brian?
That's all I have, unless you have any other questions for me.
I'm good for today.
Do you want to be back in another week? Is that the...
I would like to have further discussions on the week and talk further, maybe without putting
I'd like
deputy on record, but to understand the elections component and how that works.
Well, we need to decide when we might strike at this, right? I mean, it's 90 days and counting. So I don't think we can decide this the night before. I think that if you want this to be successful, and I think everyone in this room does, then it has to be fully transparent and people have to have all the information that they need.
I'm happy to meet again next week, half hour, or whatever the board.
Well, it should always be on the agenda as a listed item, and it should not come in under boards and commissions updates. It should always be an agenda item so that we have broad support.
I'm happy that you give it consideration. I'm very excited about that. So, next week.
Thank you for your time.
This is the presentation that we're taking to the Farm Bureau Board of Directors on Wednesday evening.
Is that a question for whom?
For me.
It's your meeting. That's not a public meeting, so it's what you would want to do. But if you need any help,
Not my meeting either. It's we are responding to a request from them.
You are. I am not. I was not invited.
Actually, Dawn communicated with them and they said, please just Ann and Brian.
That's what I said.
Right.
I was not invited. I'm not taking that mad, but I was not invited. You were. So it's not a public meeting.
Good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Brian.
Boards and commissions are our next item.
Yes.
And are we allowed to talk about conservation issues at that boards and commission item in a casual way?
In an update way, yes.
Yeah. That's what I thought. I have nothing to report.
Did you have anything, Harley? I think you're covering several things for me this week. due to my scheduling issues.
Last week was, I was out at, Key West yesterday. I don't know if you guys made it out.
No, did they buy you a beer?
I received thanks for the special meeting, we'll just put it out. For, they had a nice crowd.
Good,
For
good.
families and stuff, it's really good. Actually, I really didn't have much last week, that amounted to anything. There was a juvenile detention hearing Friday. I don't know if you were able to cover that for me or not, but other than that, I didn't really have anything.
I met with Hillcrest on Wednesday. They're going to be looking at an application to the rescue fund for a transition housing program. So kind of an immediate need and an immediate solution. So we'll see if something comes in from them. It was a good discussion. The other thing I guess I wanted to bring to the board's attention, tomorrow is the walkthrough at Hillcrest with the Access Hub site. It is private, and it's by invitation only, and I believe you received that invitation. So I would encourage you both to do that.
I had gone through it already.
Right. This is an opportunity if there's someone you wish to bring with or meet there, you know, to kind of broaden the, I have some stakeholders who are going to be meeting me there. Higher education is going to come see, just kind of that kind of thing. So it isn't open to the public. It's really intended for it to be an opportunity for the stakeholders to walk through and ask their questions. I also don't want to be exploring an avenue that I know law enforcement's excited about it, and I think we're going to get that kind of response from the broader community about the location and services. So I think Hillcrest will be a strong partner on that. The health board meeting has been moved to this Wednesday evening, which is the same night as the Farm Bureau. So I cannot attend the health board as liaison. I've already indicated that to the chair. I don't know if anybody else wants to be present in that meeting. I think they're going to do it by Zoom, and they're going to, I think, be here again. Last time they had a lot of video problems with audio, so hopefully we've got that worked out. So I don't know if anybody wants to be at that. Their agenda posting and
I thought I wrote that down, but I guess I didn't. That's Wednesday night at 6?
Wednesday at 6, right?
I don't know, it's on my calendar.
Tonight is soil and water conservation. I don't know if anybody's.
I'll be on that one.
Yeah, I was going to try to catch that one too.
And again, I'll probably try to make the Board of Health one.
And then Crescent Health Center, well, they have a 4:30
Yeah, I do have it on my
open
calendar.
house on Thursday, but I don't think you guys are going to be available for that, right? At the game. So I'll be at the Crescent open house. The other thing we're working on, I think this might be just an update too, on the delegation, the federal delegation. Ed's been putting that together with Dawn. That's on the 19th.
18th. Congressional visit, 18th.
Well, it starts on the 18th, and then it'll carry over. We're having lunch in Piast on the 19th.
Oh, I didn't have that part of it.
Is this boards and commissions or just random meeting stuff? Just asking, you're the one who stated boards and commissions had a tighter control on it.
Did you have anything that fits in this category you'd like to share, Supervisor Wickham?
Well, I'm asking you the question. If it's other agenda items, then we should post it like that and discuss it. But I thought it was boards and commissions and.
Very good, thank you. Is there anything else, Charlie, that you have that you want to,
I don't have anything.
okay.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
Motion is second to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye.